Hey, my name is Evan. I did my cultural immersion and advocacy project on Sikhs. So, Sikhism, founded in the 15th century, it is the world's fifth largest religion. 25 million people practice it worldwide. It is from the Punjab region in northern India. About 500,000 practicing Sikhs live in the US today. Core values are truthful living, service to humanity, and a devotion to God. It centers around the idea of oneness. And all people of all faiths worship one divine being. All humans are equal in the eyes of God. Seva is a big part of this as well. It's a service to humanity, um, community service, helping others. This is very important for Sikhs. Physical identity is something that makes Sikhs stand out in public. So, like turbans. And turbans were originally worn by royalty. Gurus adopted them as a way to buck against the caste system, and that value of egalitarianism is something that Sikhs share. Now, I personally am not religious. I consider myself atheist, and I feel like it's important for me to understand spirituality in others. And I'll get into that a little bit more too. So when it comes to help seeking, in the context of Sikh faith, Dukh refers to pain of the mind. And this pain is rooted in things like materialistic, external factors, things like poverty, death, addiction, and emotional responses to things like discrimination. Mental health stigmatization is still very strong in this community, about 83% treatment gap. A reinforcement of identity and a sense of community are things as counselors that are important for us to encourage and reinforce. So my immersion experiences were visiting the Gurdwara Sahib in Austin, Texas, and learning how to tie the turban. So I visited the Gurdwara, and I got to experience what it was like to be present for a service. There were a lot of things I had to learn before even entering the building. I had to have my head covered. I use a bandana. I had to remove my shoes. I had to even make sure that the soles of my feet weren't facing the holy texts. The thing that I really connected with was the music. I felt like, for me, music is something that is very personal. It's meant to be shared with people. And it kind of hit me that music is very important for many religions, but it was a very important part for Sikhism, and I was really delighted to be able to experience that. I also tried to learn how to tie a turban, and I'm terrible at it. There was a lot to it that I hadn't expected, especially to make it look good. Now, it felt like something that I'm sure with enough time and more practice, I would be better at. Especially if it's something I devote myself to, like many Sikhs do, or something that I grew up seeing and just experiencing. It's like tying a shoe. You know, I wore Velcro for a long time because I needed to learn how to tie my shoes. And learning that process, you know, it gets easier and second nature at a certain point. And I imagine it's the same for the turban as well, but it takes a lot of devotion. And it's something I'm definitely much more appreciative of, and something that I'll notice next time that I see a turban in public. So for advocacy, I wanted to learn more about the turban, and the meaning of the dastar, and the decisions that young men make as they, or the thought process that goes through their mind as they make the decision to wear the turban. So post 9/11 is wild. The discrimination, hate crimes, you know, that Sikh people face as a result of Islamophobia. And as a reminder, Sikhism is not related to Islam. It's a separate religion. That doesn't matter for people who are hateful and will discriminate. The things that make the biggest impact for a young man who is deciding to tie the turban is a safe and supportive environment. So whether that's at home, whether that's in front of you in your office, that is a single most important factor. Recognizing the intersectionality of their identity as well. And I also compiled and submitted some resources for local Sikhs for a counseling center in my community. And those were some of the resources that I sent them. Important to note for all of these resources, each page had a submit a report of a hate crime. Each of their pages, which, you know, it's pretty shocking to see that the normalization of that's something that just has to be for every one of these communities that is offering help. That is the single biggest thing that I noticed that Sikhs struggle with and causes a lot of turmoil and hardship is facing discrimination and just everything around discrimination. Some of the challenges I experienced, I really felt like I didn't belong. That's not to say I didn't feel welcomed. Religion is something for me that I'm just not, I just don't feel a connection to. But I did feel like, you know, the importance of music, that was something that I was able to connect. The rules of the Gurdwara were difficult for me as well. I wanted to make sure, and that's really difficult, but I wanted to make sure that I did it right and I did a good job and I was respectful. The depth of the tie the turban shocked me again. There's a lot of dedication that goes into it. Cultural competence. Development of identity is something that is important for Sikhs. I personally was pretty vehemently anti-religion. Members of my family would use slurs, you know, against Sikhs. It's just something that, growing up in a rural, conservative California, it was something that it was unfortunately commonplace. I'm thankful that I never internalized it, but I definitely wasn't supportive of religion in general. And that was something that, for me, because I wasn't exposed to that, I needed to learn elsewhere. But since then, you know, I understand now the importance of spirituality and how valuable that is just to the human experience. That connectedness, that oneness, that is something that I can identify with, and I do appreciate. And personally, from my own expression of spirituality, doesn't include faith in a God, but faith in humanity. And so that connectedness, that oneness, that's something that I can identify with in that way. So things to consider as you have Sikhs in your office. Cultural safety. So providing an environment that's safe, supportive, considerate. Cultural humility, being willing to self-reflect, know that you don't know everything, but you're willing to learn as much as you can. And narrative humility, just understanding the role that this person has in the story that they're telling you, and being there and listening and understanding the expectations that come with that role that they have. Trauma-informed care is something important for you to be aware of as well, especially trauma as it relates to experiencing discrimination, and addressing the systemic and institutional nature of racism and bias. Like, you got to do the work for yourself and then do the work in your community, by extension the world. Like, you have to address this in some way, shape, or form. And I think it's our responsibility to have conversations like this and try to destigmatize mental health in as many communities as possible, so we can try to address these systemic issues. Incorporating religious material whenever appropriate, being prepared for clients to bring up religious content or relate the religion to the current situation. Like, their religion is going to be a very salient aspect of their identity for them. And that is something that is going to be woven into their experiences and the things they communicate to you. That needs to be something that you keep in mind always, and you're ready to incorporate their religion in your responses and how you approach the therapeutic process. Future advocacy for me, I'm going to continue to read literature. I think it's especially important for me to continue to read accounts of people's hate crimes and how they persisted, and those are the stories that need to be heard and that we need to learn from. And we need to build tools to be able to combat this and prevent it as well. And yeah, I'm really appreciative that I got to learn about a religion. If I considered myself a religious person, this feels like something that I can really identify with. Even as a non-religious person, just so many aspects of the egalitarianism, you know, the oneness, I see it as a oneness of humanity, like service to humanity, doing good for others wherever you can, however you can. Those are things that feel like they're values of mine too. And it's important for people to feel like they belong. And this is a way that many Sikhs feel belonging in. And yeah, I'm glad that I got to experience this.